Bring in ABC News political director Rick Klein for more on what to watch as the primaries get underway. Rick, we just saw President Biden and Democrats in Congress make a pretty big push for federal voting rights legislation in response to laws like this one that we're talking about in Texas. Where do things stand with that effort in Congress now?
It's not happening, Phil. It's been a big disappointment for President Biden and for Democrats. They had that big vote on the Senate floor last month. It fell short. And there's no real talk of reviving the substance of that, which means that rather than having a federal law that would override some of these state laws, it means coping with these new state laws and fighting it out in courts. We've seen that happen in Texas. There are portions of the new Texas law that aren't being enforced immediately. But by and large, Texas and at least a dozen other states have made it more difficult to vote. And we are seeing the consequences of that begin to play out. We've been talking to counties across Texas. They're saying 7, 8, maybe more than 10% of ballot applications are being rejected because of new requirements. Now the question about whether that's going to affect voter turnout, whether those voters are going to be able to register to vote and cast their ballots for the primaries and the general election, it's very much an open question, even as voting begins today.
Rick, you're a student of history, so you know this well. The president's party historically usually loses some ground in the midterm elections. What, if anything, can the Democrats do here to maintain their slim majority?
Oh, it's the biggest question that's haunting Democrats right now. They point to redistricting, which hasn't been as bad for Democrats as they once thought. But beyond that, trying to make sure that they're connecting to people's lives is by far the biggest thing that Democrats need to adjust to, which means getting out in front of inflation where possible, which means making the case that Republicans might be too closely tied to former President Trump and therefore following his election lies would be dangerous to democracy. That's another big argument. And also, I think COVID has to be solved for Democrats to get to be able to make that case to the American people. There's a fascinating election just tomorrow in San Francisco, as an example, Phil, where you've got several liberal members of the school board who might be recalled because some of their fellow progressives feel like they haven't gone far enough, fast enough in getting life back to normal. That's just a harbinger of things to come, and that's just inside the Democratic Party. There's a lot of anger and a lot of frustration out there that Democrats, as of now, are left holding the bag on.
Right, and here's another big question, too. Former President Donald Trump has vowed to support primary challengers against some GOP candidates who've spoken out against him. You mentioned that. The question is, how large a shadow does this cast on these elections? And what are you watching? How are you watching those races to play out? Is the former president's endorsement a good thing, a bad thing? Does it matter where the race is?
Look, Republicans that are running without his endorsement or knowing that they're running against him have serious headwinds. Ask Liz Cheney about that in Wyoming. What's interesting in Texas is you have Governor Abbott running for this additional term. He's got Trump's endorsement, but there are at least two other pro-Trump Republicans running who say they're actually as close, if not closer, to the former president. You also have the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, the Republican incumbent there. He's running for an additional term. He's running against a Trump loyalist who's a member of Congress, Louis Gohmert. He's also running against George P. Bush, the Texas Agriculture Commissioner. He is the son of Jeb Bush, the nephew of George W. Bush, the grandson of George H.W. Bush. And despite all of those Bush family connections, he, too, is a big Trump supporter. So all of these major Republicans are actually running as Trump surrogates or as close to Trump as they can. Of course, there's only so many endorsements to go around. But this primary, this first round of the primary, when it goes off on March 1st, is going to be some early indications about whether a Trump endorsement carries enough weight to get you past the finish line or whether you need to start to do more than that. There's no one really testing the notion in Texas at the statewide level of whether you can be an anti-Trump Republican.
All right. Rick Klein, well, I'll be watching. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.